Hey guys, Ben Paint here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are back down at Teamsport Bristol trying to get some more quick qualifying times for the BIKC. This is the second time we are officially putting a time in, so we are taking part in a Chase the Ace format tonight, which consists of a 10-minute qualifying, which I haven't showed you guys. I'll give you a rundown on that in a second, followed by a 45-minute straight race. You can see we're qualifying done. We've lined up on the grid here, and we actually qualified in 9th position, which I don't think was very justified for our current pace, but we were just going to see if we can get our head down and try and get the best result we can. Obviously, a rolling start here, you can see it's a little bit all over the place, and I actually got jumped a little bit on the start. I wasn't sure when the green light came, but included in this format was a pit stop, a mandatory pit stop that we had to do, a stop and go, and this was then obviously followed by just a straight race. So you can see losing quite a lot of time on the first lap. We had Harley behind us in 10th place. Me and him both didn't have the best qualifying, so we were just trying to get our heads down and put in the best laps that we possibly could to try and make our way up the field. So you can see we're down in 9th, and I would like to say a little disclaimer for this video. I would like to apologise in advance for my voice if it sounds a little bit raspy or just not quite up to standard. I am really suffering from hay fever, and it really does affect me in quite a bad way. So if I sound a little bit off, I'm trying my best. So you can see we have one lap down. We have come across the line with a 44.330 second lap. Obviously very slow, and we're still down in 9th place. So a little bit of contact up ahead has allowed us to catch back up to Barney Williams up ahead of us, and Oliver Payne, who is ahead of him. Obviously a lot of quick drivers down at the track at this one. We had Sam Gaskell at the front alongside Ryan Fisher, and then we had Zach Venn as well, and then Alfie, Andreas, Kelvin. They're all up ahead of us, and we just wanted to try and get down and catch up with all of them. So we come across the line here with a bit of a faster lap, not quite up to standard, about a second and a half off where we need to be, but a 39.368 so far, and I knew that we had a little bit of time to catch up on. Obviously our time in qualifying was a 38.3, I believe, which was actually 6/10 off the guys at the front, so I knew that I wasn't that far off the pace. And you can see again, you can see how much defending Barney is doing here as we're going through the top section, and just by doing this we're losing more and more time to the drivers up ahead. You can see obviously Oliver Payne and Kelvin there, they're just sort of racing away now, and I knew that the longer I was sat behind Barney, the longer that we would sort of lose time and lose positions. So we're just trying to follow him around and try and look for a way past if we can, but I'm not really trying to pressure him too much, as I didn't want him to go as defensive as he has been doing so far. So I thought if I back off a little bit, I was looking over my shoulder to see Harley was right up my chuff as well, so he was following along behind. So I thought if I back off a little bit, we might be able to catch him unawares. But again, you can see how defensive he's going. I try and sort of force him narrow here and then cut down the inside, so you can see he's looking over his shoulder. He knows we're all over the back of him. Kelvin goes into the pits, so that is a free position up into 8th place, and you can see how much we're all over the back of Barney here. We can't actually see, I'm shaking my head and getting a bit annoyed, but even with this we're getting faster and faster with every lap. 39.009 so far, but there's obviously time to be improving on. You can see making a little bit of a mistake there, clipping the inside of the Mickey Mouse section, and that obviously loses you a lot of momentum going into one of the key overtaking points on the track, the bottom hairpin. So you can see again, I decided to back off a little bit, take a wide line and try and catch him unawares, but he's still going really defensive here, and I was getting a little bit frustrated. I was looking for a way past, looking over my shoulders to see Harley's right there as well, as I mentioned, and to my surprise, as I was about to dip into the pits, Barney instead dips into the pits, which I wasn't sure why he did that, if he was holding me up, because if he just stayed out ahead I wasn't really able to find a way past. So instead he goes into the pits, and this is now where the times were going to start dropping down dramatically. So we come across the line, our last lap obviously battling with Barney still, a 38.827, so only 6/10 or so off our fastest lap from qualifying, and I knew that I had a lot more to give. So now we're up into 7th place, and I was looking to really close the gap on Oliver that I'd lost from being behind Barney. So really trying to take the unorthodox line that I like to take going through the top two sections, just to really slide the car into the corner, and again just trying to keep the car as stable as possible and close to the apex as I can coming around the last corner. And we come across the line there straight away, a 38-second dead. So just from moving out of the path of Barney from behind him, we've already gained 8/10 on our fastest lap of the race, and we're also now even faster than we were in qualifying. Now I was trying a little bit of a different braking technique as we get later into this race, just on the bottom hairpin. Obviously usually I try and hit the brake pedal as hard as I can, as late as I can, just to try and get the kart rotated into the corner. But instead this time I was barely using the brake pedal. I was using more half throttle and trying to get on the power as early as I can to try and get the best run up the ramp. And you can see that it does help later into the video, because you'll see how much my lap times drastically improve compared to how they are at this current point in time. So you can see again, I'll show you again. So rather than sliding all the way in, by using this sort of technique, the kart wasn't actually sliding, but it was still rotating, and this meant that I was able to keep my grip in the bottom hairpin, and then allow me to carry more speed going up the ramp, which is obviously an area that I do sort of struggle against some of the lighter drivers in. So by giving myself this advantage, it really allowed me to slowly catch up and reel in Oliver. You can see up ahead he is getting bigger and bigger on our screen, so we are slowly but surely beginning to catch him up. You can see how consistent I'm being as well. A 36.0 second lap again, and only about 100th off our fastest lap of the race so far. So the key sort of takeaway from this race, which I was really happy with, was I actually had the fastest average lap time out of any of the drivers on track. Now obviously when you're doing a longer endurance sort of format like this, which is 45 minutes long, the faster your average is, or the slower time it is, the better you're going to finish, just because you are consistently carrying that pace throughout the whole of the race. You can see Oliver dipping into the pits there on the left hand side, and this gives us 6th position now at this point. Now the way I was looking at this race as well is I really wanted to try and go as long as I can and really maximise the clean air, and just trying to follow along and catch up to some of the other guys up ahead. So you can see by doing this so far, I'm really using Oliver as a marker. We've managed to get a faster time again, a 38.030, which I'm really happy with. And I know that with the BIKC, I really wanted to try and get down into 37-second lap times if I can. So we'll see if we can do it later in the video. Obviously my fastest lap time so far that is locked in for the BIKC qualifying is a 38.2. So we've already beaten that already with that 38 dead. So by carrying it on, you can see immediately straight away a 37.83 forward, that clean air up ahead of me, and using the drivers up ahead as a bit of a marker to catch up to, we were really able to just put the times in and really go for it. And you can see the gap up ahead is just getting smaller and smaller every lap, which I was really happy with. And the thing I didn't realise at this point is I think I had a little bit of a mind blank, because I didn't quite realise what position I was actually in. I thought I was a bit further back still than I was. I didn't notice that Kelvin had gone into the pits either at this point, so I thought I was down in about 7th or 8th position, and I wasn't really aware, as you'll see later with more drivers coming out on track out of the pits, where I just wasn't aware of my position. So this does factor in a little bit of team tactics later, which we'll get into. So we come across the line again, really consistent, 37.892, which I was really happy with. So I knew now at this point that I had a nice bit of pace. I was looking over my shoulder, there was no one really following me. Harley behind me, I'd actually given him a little bit of a gap, so I knew that I was running my own race at this point. Obviously starting down in 9th, we'd already gained 3 positions, and now we're just trying to look and see if we can tag on to the back of the other guys up ahead. You can see in 3rd place was Zach, 4th place was Andreas, sorry, and then Alfie was in 5th. So all drivers that I know are pretty quick around the track, and some that are also quite light compared to me. So if I could get up closer to them, then I knew that I was on for some really good pace in this race. So you can see here that Alfie up ahead in 5th is sort of maintaining the gap to me at the moment. I wasn't quite able to really motor on and stay consistent in the 37-second lap time, so we dropped back to 38 here. Obviously the evening was very hot, and wearing my beautiful Vertice suit, it did mean that I was overheating like mad indoors. I was really sweating away, and I just wanted to try and fight off the fatigue and just carry on going round as fast as I can. You can see I've done that in the last lap there, a 37.740, which is our fastest lap so far, and we were just looking to continue this throughout the rest of the race. Now we've done a little bit of a cut here because it was about 10 to 15 laps still of me just driving round, but you can see from doing this we have been able to catch up to some of the guys up ahead. Obviously our last lap there, we didn't quite see it, we caught the end of it, a 37.825, and now I knew at this point I was onto the back of the karts of the other 3. So this was from 3rd to 5th up ahead of me, and now I knew that I would have a little bit of thermal tow, which would allow me to catch up to the guys even quicker. And by following right behind them, it would just mean I could stay even more consistent, as it's something I like to do. I like to almost stare at the bumper of the driver up ahead of me, and this means that I can just sort of carry on round. You can see Zach then zipped into the pits there, so now we're up into 5th place, another position gained, and now I knew that Alfie and Andreas were going to battle for that 3rd place on the podium. So you can see again being super consistent within the 37.7s and 37.8 lap times, and we come across the line again at 37.798. so you clearly using my new braking technique on the bottom hairpin was really helping me out here. You can see how much time I've actually managed to gain through that section against drivers that are actually lighter than me, so I was really happy with this, trying to stay as close to the apexes as I can as we come round here. And I knew that Alfie and Andreas would be sort of battling with one another, and this means I was able to really close up. Alfie wanted to dip into the pits there, but Andreas did it instead, so I knew Alfie would be a little bit frustrated and thrown off. You can see him shaking his head, and this I thought was my time to pounce on him as well. We come across the line with our fastest lap again of the race at 37.7299. I decided to try and take a little bit of a wider line through the Mickey Mouse there, but unfortunately he clipped the back of Alfie's car there. I probably could have gone for a move down the inside, caught him unawares, but I knew that if he was raising his hand on the previous lap, then he would want to come in on this lap, because it's just the nature of the way people are. So I knew he would want to come in on this lap and not carry on going round. So rather than sort of get into a fight and lose a little bit more time, I thought I'd let him carry on round. As you can see here, he raises his hand and goes into the pits as well. So now we are up into 3rd place and haven't lost too much time. We lost a couple of attempts behind Alfie, but it isn't the end of the world. So we come across the line now, 38.246. Now, as I mentioned, I didn't actually realise I was in 3rd place at this point. I thought, due to people coming out of the pits ahead of me from being lapped and some of the other drivers sort of being in and amongst each other, that I was still down in about 5th position. Now, I wasn't aware that I was up in a podium position at this point. I didn't realise Zach had dipped into the pits either. Obviously, I've seen it quite clearly watching the footage back, but I also didn't see him do that, so I thought he'd just raced off. But you can see Sam and Ryan up ahead on the right hand side as we come round the last corner, so they are the guys in 1st and 2nd. So I've still got a little bit of time to make up, but we are still pushing on and putting in some consistent laps. A 38.024 second lap here, and I think at this point in the race, this is sort of the difficult point where I was just losing a little bit of focus from not really having a reference to follow, and instead of me being able to just go around and follow someone, I was just instead just going into a little bit of a dry spell. You can see the 2 drivers there on the left hand side. They've sort of raced off ahead. Obviously this is yellow flag, so I've slowed down a little bit here. You can see Harley behind me there as well. So on the left hand side there, you can see that Sam has now, oh sorry, that's not Sam, that is Sam, that is in fact Sam. Sam dipped into the pits there on the left hand side, and this has pushed me up into P2 now at this point, which I obviously still didn't realise. So we were still trying to push on and race as fast as we can and just try and put in some really good results, but instead we were sort of just stuck in the pack here on our own in a bit of no man's land, and I didn't realise that I was just sort of racing around in the position that I was in. So instead we are in 2nd place now at this point, and we are looking to try and improve on that as the race goes on. So you can see into the pits comes Ryan Fisher here, so now we are in fact up in 1st position. So as I mentioned, I completely didn't realise that I was in 1st, but I was really happy that I was able to just keep going around. So at this point I still thought that I was in about 4th place, which is really confusing, especially you can see some of the drivers on the right hand side. So we cut ahead again because it was just me driving around for a few laps, and what I decided to do was, instead of pounding around, you can see my lap times have been a little bit slower. I, instead of trying to race around as fast as I can, I instead wanted to try and slow down Ryan, who was up behind me, because I knew Sam, obviously he is the teammate on my team. I wanted to try and slow down and help him out if I could by just sort of compromising Ryan a little bit. But obviously if I didn't do this, I probably would have finished a little bit higher up than I did, but I didn't compromise Ryan too much as he slips right down the inside going up the ramp, and instead I wanted to try and tag along behind him now at this point and try and put in a lap time with some nice pace. So you can see again, you can see the different lines he's taken. He's actually getting a way better exit out of the last corner, and he gives me a little bit of a loser sign with his hand as well, which only sort of prompted me to try and push up a little bit faster to try and catch up to him and make an overtake on him once more to try and help out Sam. So you can see here, trying to be as consistent as I can through the Mickey Mouse. I was referencing to Sam at this point that he needs to hurry up and try and catch up with Ryan, otherwise Ryan's going to race off into the distance. So here you can see really tagging along behind him. We have lost 1 or 2 car lengths to him just from a few silly mistakes, but again, just trying to get as tight as I can to the tyre walls, and you can see drivers up ahead spinning all over the place. And I thought this would be the perfect time to come into the pits and stop for my pit stop. So obviously, as I said, I didn't realise I was in second place, and you can see that Barney has now overtaken us through the pit stop. But to my surprise, I thought he'd overtaken me based on position, but in fact I had already lapped him and he was actually a lap down. So I'd come into the pits in first place and I was now coming out in third, which I was really surprised about. But this was in fact where I actually ended the race, from 9th to 3rd. So I was really happy with this, and I'll be honest, the rest of the race would pretty much be just racing around, trying to put in some quick lap times. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to watch over some of the last few laps where I was putting in some really good pace, and we'll just see how we were able to actually get them, because the lap times did in fact improve. We were able to get a faster lap than our fastest lap so far. So let's see how we get on. Obviously you can see on the left hand side, you can see Ryan, you can see Sam. They're still ahead of me in first and second in that big group of karts, and I was really pushing myself to try and catch up to these guys. I thought if I was able to tag onto the back of the train, obviously there's a big train, everyone's going to be fighting, it's going to be a bit of slowing each other down. The more that they do that, the quicker my lap times are going to be. So you can see our last lap there at 37.678, which I was really happy with. That was my fastest lap of the race and of the night and of the year for me so far. So that is a really good lap time. I was only a couple of thousandths off Sam, and I was only 1/10 off Ryan, who were the only two people that were faster than me on the evening. So, and that put me as the fastest middleweight so far out of everyone at Bristol, which I was really happy with. And now I was just trying to stay consistent and make sure and see if I could do it again as we're coming round later into the race. Obviously it's a big gap, I wasn't entirely sure how much time is left. You can see we're about a 10th and a half slower on that one, a 37.827, but now we're just really trying to get our heads down and really reduce that gap. So again, using that technique to try and swing the kart in, try and maintain the momentum there, to try and push the kart as fast as I can up the ramp, using the two white dots down the floor and lifting off slightly to maintain the traction going into the fast right-hander there at the top. And again, just trying to stay nice and far to the left coming out of the second hairpin to ensure that we just carry as much speed going down the ramp as we can. Again, just trying to regulate the throttle and the brake pedal around the last corner to try and maintain grip. And you can see this is all helping me to stay as consistent as I possibly can. You can see a 37.696 our last lap, which is only 200ths off our fastest lap so far. And actually, to my mistake, our fastest lap wasn't in fact our fastest lap of the race. It's going to come a little bit later into the race, as I was really trying to push myself as much as I can, especially in the latter stages of the race where I knew a lot of people would be feeling tired and fatigued, and this would be the perfect time in the race for me to really catch up to the train that is sort of up ahead of me. So we're coming across the line now on this lap, a little bit slower in this one, 37.710, but we are still within a 10th of the last 2 or 3 laps, which I was really happy with. I was staying really consistent, and you can see how much this is helping me to catch up to the drivers up ahead. You can see there is now 2 karts in between me and Ryan. Ryan was in second place, so I thought if I could catch up to these guys, I would be able to get into the thermal tow, and I would be able to really make myself an opportunity to maybe even make a move on Ryan into the last couple of laps. Now you can see up ahead there's a bit of a kerfuffle, and this allowed one of the other drivers to be a little bit slower, and now I was looking to try and find my way past as quickly as I can. You can see they're a little bit all over the place. We come across the line at 37.852. They go quite wide there, and that allows me to go right down the inside going into the first corner. Again, just trying to stay flat out through the Mickey Mouse section, just to ensure that I can keep as much of the power up and the revs up as I can to get myself up to that bottom hairpin as quickly as possible. You can see how much we are actually closing up to the guys up ahead. Everyone's sort of staying in the same sort of range, but we are instead reducing the distance bit by bit as we carry on around the track. So we're coming down into the last corner here on this lap, trying to stay as tight as possible to both of the apexes, and you can see that we in fact did receive the last lap board. So I knew I wasn't going to quite catch up to Ryan, but we did in fact get our fastest lap of the race and our fastest lap of the year on this lap at 37.662, which I was really happy with. That's really solid pace at the moment, and as I mentioned, that is the fastest times out of any of the middleweights that have been down at the track at the moment. Now I did try to go up the inside here on this corner. Unfortunately I didn't quite make it stick, and this meant that I lost a little bit of time. So I knew that this lap time, which was my last lap time of the race, wasn't going to be any quicker than the previous one, but I was still very, very happy with my pace overall. and you can see me there just sort of being a bit annoyed with myself that I didn't quite make the move stick. But we come across the line on this lap about a second slower at 38.542, but that does in fact bring us to the end of the video. So if you have watched this far into it, I would like to say a massive thank you. I really do appreciate it. And if you did enjoy this video, could you please leave a like on it down below? And if you are new to the channel, or if you haven't already, can you also hit the subscribe button, as we have many more videos coming out for the rest of the year, especially concerning BIKC. Now my next video will be at Ello Park for Club 73, however they don't allow head cams, so I'm going to try and do a bit of a different video for that one. But in the meantime, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.